So I've seen a lot of comments on various videos about Terry Davis and TempleOS regarding the theme of the operating system. There's been a lot of suggestions that the entirety of the hymn was written by a random number generator, with no input from Terry Davis himself. What I hope to prove with this video is that although it may have been the case that Terry Davis used a random number generator to provide source material for some aspects of the piece, there is no doubt that Risen is largely or mostly an artistic product of his own making. Before starting the video, I would like to make a quick disclaimer that my specialty is in music analysis and not in coding computers or anything having to do with technology. All of the analysis in this video will exclusively be from a musical perspective, but with that being said, most people watching who don't have any previous knowledge of music theory should be able to follow along without too much trouble. For those of you watching this channel for music theory purposes, there are several high-quality fan-made documentaries about Terry Davis that you can feel free to check out either before or after this video, and I will link some in the description. Now, there are several strong arguments for why it would have been nearly impossible for the hymn to have been written entirely by a random number generator. And I do use the term entirely because I think it is very likely that some aspects of the piece were written using a random number generator. The first compositional component of the work that I would like to look at is the form. Risen follows what is known as a simple binary form, and it's actually a textbook example of that form. Binary form is a musical form which consists of two related sections, both of which are normally repeated. We'll call these A and B. Most commonly, the A and B are each repeated once, creating an AABB form. One more specific type of binary form is called rounded binary form. This is when the A can be heard again following the B. Simple binary form is a type of binary form in which the B section just ends, rather than returning to the A. AABB would qualify as a simple binary form, and this is exactly what we see with Risen. A, A, B, B. Now, is it possible that a random number generator, with inputs large enough to have created this work in the first place, could have created the exact same melody, twice in a row, twice? I would have to say probably not. However, this certainly wouldn't rule out the possibility that these two sequences were generated randomly just once, and then Terry Davis made the creative decision to fit them into a binary form. But even then, it could have only been random generation within an extremely limited range of pitches that Davis himself specified in advance. This is because the hymn uses only 7 different pitches, all natural notes, from A3 to G4, an A natural minor scale. For those of you who don't know any music theory, you can just conceptualize this as being 7 consecutive white keys on the piano that sound mostly coherent together melodically and make a sad scale. Inevitably, choosing source materials from within the very limited range of only a single octave of any major or minor scale, and then assembling a melody from those notes at random will definitely tend to sound more melodic than a melody generated at random using the entire range of the piano in all 12 chromatic pitches. Still, however, Risen exceeds our expectations and does something even a bit more specific. Of the 7 different pitches used throughout the melody, 3 pitches in particular seem to be vastly overrepresented. These pitches are D, E, and F, which together account for almost 75% of the individual notes played within the hymn. As a matter of fact, of the 62 individual notes in the song, D and E each account for 16, or 25.8% each. In addition to this, at any given point in the piece it certainly sounds like D is our tonal center, even in spite of the 2 B natural notes played in the melody. This would mean that the work actually functions modally, centering around the note D, making this piece in D Dorian. For those of you who don't understand music theory, all you need to know is that there are 2 big implications of this. The first is that given this massively uneven distribution, it's highly unlikely that these pitches were determined by random. The second is that given the modal nature of the melody, which was purposefully prepared for presentation alongside the medieval imagery of a sword, it's probable that Davis purposefully chose medieval musical mode for aesthetic reasons. This is partly evidenced by Davis's generous use of reverb on an otherwise monophonic or one-voiced musical texture. One almost feels as if he is sitting in a medieval church, listening to Gregorian chant. This has evidently been picked up by many others, which you can witness for yourself by listening to the various covers of the hymn. One example of a medieval musical work also written in D Dorian that you can think of for the sake of a comparative is that of Guillaume Dufay's Ave Stella Maria. Now, given Davis's evident skills as a vocalist, dancer, and drummer, I don't think that it's too crazy to assume that he was an individual who possessed at least some level of knowledge of music theory. Although I don't have anything in the way of hard evidence to prove that Davis knew of modes and the medieval connotations that they could conjure in a listener, I think that there's enough circumstantial evidence for it to at least be taken into consideration for any full analysis of the work. There are also several interesting ways in which we can analyze risen rhythmically. The first thing that many notice about the hymn is its fast tempo, somewhere in the ballpark of about 170 beats per minute. The work is in 4/4 and begins with a pickup measure. Once again, for those of you less fluent in music theory, all this means is that every measure has 4 units of our base unit of measurement, a quarter note, with the exception of the first and last measures, which only have a length of 1 quarter note and then 3 quarter notes, respectively. There are a total of 32 beats in the melody, divided across 9 bars including the pickup measure. All of the beats in the melody can be classified more specifically depending on whether they are further subdivided, and if so, how. And this is where things start to get interesting. All of the beats in the melody are either left as quarter notes, divided by 2 into eighth notes, or divided by 3 into what are known as eighth note triplets. What makes this interesting is the shockingly equal distribution of these 3 rhythmic types. Of the 32 beats in the hymn, 12 are left as quarter notes, 10 are divided by 2 into eighth notes, and 10 are divided by 3 into eighth note triplets. The almost perfect evenness of the distribution of these 3 rhythmic types leads me to believe that the distribution of these rhythms is one aspect of the composition that Davis did leave to chance. Of course, without any hard evidence, this is still just speculation. In conclusion, my hypothesis for how Terry Davis composed Risen goes something like this. At the very least, Davis chose the set of 7 notes that he wanted to use, Davis chose the above-mentioned 3 rhythmic types that he wanted to use, Davis chose which notes to make the center of gravity of the composition, and Davis chose the form of the hymn. Although I think it is likely that some element of chance was used in the composition of the work, most likely for determining the distribution of the 3 rhythmic types, there is no doubt that Davis's own creative decisions played a substantial role in determining the final shape of the composition. Just to be perfectly clear, my purpose in making this video is not to demystify the lore that surrounds Terry Davis's life just for the sake of ruining everybody's fun, but rather to give credit where credit is due. Terry Davis was an individual with an exceptional level of talent across multiple fields, and although I can't speak too much about his abilities as a programmer, I can speak to his obvious talent as a musician, and I wanted to make sure that he receives proper recognition for all of his creative work on TempleOS, including its musical aspects, rather than have some of these achievements just be attributed to some force of sheer luck. If you like the content of this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and to hit that notification bell. I plan on making more videos on similar topics soon. I'll also probably set up some type of Patreon page in the case that any of you want to help facilitate my histrionic e-begging. Thank you, and more soon.